Azure Services. Azure Data Factory, ADF, used for creating pipelines, loading data, and controlling activities. Azure Cache for Redis, provides a caching solution. Azure Logic Apps and Functions. Logic apps require a data gateway for on-premise integration, while functions need premium for VNet connectivity. Azure Data Lake Storage, ADLS, allows data ingestion for long-term storage. Azure Synapse Analytics, formerly SQL Data Warehouse, supports transaction data, daily jobs, analysis on stored SQL data, and development of notebooks. Azure Cosmos DB stores data in JSON-like format, supports SQL queries, low latency, multi-region writes, and provides a SQL DB API and time series insight. Azure Cycle Cloud, used for implementing high-performance computing, HPC, workloads. Azure Service Fabric enables independent upgrades of microservices. Azure Key Vault stores and manages cryptographic keys, secrets, and certificates. Azure SQL Managed Instance, SQL MI, offers high-capacity storage for OLTP, but doesn't support cross-database queries. Azure Monitor provides alerts for monitoring. Azure AD Connect Health checks the health of AD Connect. Azure Blueprint allows you to define and assign configurations to deployed resources. Azure Active Directory Domain Services, ADS, provides domain services. Azure Queue Storage enables communication using XML. Azure Application Insights, used for in-app monitoring. Azure Resource Mover moves virtual machines, VMs, between regions. Azure Pipeline Release Pipelines supports building and deploying images to Azure Container Registry, ACR, and Azure Kubernetes Service, AKS. Azure Blob Storage offers tiering and has a capacity of up to 4.77 terabytes. Azure Policy can be applied to subscriptions, resource groups, and management groups. Concepts and features. Self-hosted integration runtime, used in Azure Data Factory for on-premise integration. Data path availability ensures availability of data paths in a system. SYN count represents the number of SYN packets in a network communication. Database transaction units, DTUs, measure the performance of an Azure SQL database. Long-term retention required to retain data for 7 years in Azure SQL database. Gremlin query language for Apache Tinker Pop graph databases. VHD files used for SQL database and can reduce failover time using distributed network name, DNN. Auto-sending logs to Azure SQL. Azure SQL has a premium tier for redundant replicas. Azure Synapse Link for Azure Cosmos DB allows data analysis without impacting database performance. Soft Delete, a feature that allows the recovery of deleted data. Hierarchical namespaces, organizational structure for managing Azure resources. Single sign-on, SSO, supported through App Proxy, enterprise applications, and conditional access. Priority traffic routing, handled by Azure Traffic Manager. Azure AD Entitlement Management, used to govern external users' access rights. Azure Service Bus supports processing XML messages, topics, queues, and sessions. Azure Log Analytics provides subscription-related information. Microsoft Identity Platform manages tokens for identities. Cluster Autoscaler, part of Azure Container Instances, ACI, to scale AKS by offloading pods. Horizontal Scaler monitors metrics to scale resources. Dynamic Data Masking masks sensitive data in databases. Data Migration Assistant facilitates offline migrations of SQL Server servers starting from SQL Server 2012. High-performance compute. H16R is an example of a high-performance compute instance, and Remote Directory Memory Access, RDMA, is used for efficient memory access. Azure Identity Governance, an alternative to Privileged Identity Management, PIM, for identity governance. Application Gateway includes an ingress controller, API-C, for managing inbound traffic to applications. Password-based SSO enables single sign-on for applications that don't support identity providers. Azure Instance Metadata Service Identity, used for obtaining VM tokens.